The stars and the Universal logo twinkle, even though the camera is set outside the atmosphere of Earth where no twinkling would be caused. Take that, Christopher Nolan. Also, Comcast. Imagine being on an extended vacation where you didn't nitpick films to death for 6 months, and then when you return, the first movie you're supposed to sit is a critically acclaimed biopic, which we have pretty much stayed away from for various reasons. So I had to hire a book lover, hard to find in the United States, to read American Prometheus for me so that I could sin the differences between art and real life. And here's a sin for books. Christopher Nolan makes it clear that he wants you to read his text the same way you hear his dialogue, muddled and intermittently. Also, it sounds like Prometheus did not go to the Prometheus school of running away from things. Oppenheimer begins with text that makes it look like it's going to be broken up into chapter breaks, showing us number 1, fission, and then number 2, fusion. But it turns out it's just a numbering and titling system that's used here and here only. The change from color for Oppenheimer to black and white for Strauss lets you know everything you need to know. Anyway, personally, I'm just glad I won't be confused about what the mole is in this picture.
President Eisenhower's asked you to be in his cabinet. The Senate really has no choice but to confirm him.
It's amazing that Han Solo here acts as if the Senate just rubber stamps cabinet members because the president wants it, and then an hour later explains that there have been cabinet members who weren't voted in.
Were you happier there than in America?
Happier.
Yes.
As Cillian Murphy thinks back to his days at Cambridge, which he attended in 1925 and 1926, and the movie cuts back to the Gray Board hearing, which took place in 1954, I just realized we finally got the 28 years later movie we've all been waiting for. Bring on the Oppen zombies. Amazingly, Nolan did all these special effects in camera, including this lifelike replica of Cillian Murphy that was so good that at one point he regaled the crew with stories about filming Red Eye.
Useless in the lab.
What the shit was he trying to do here besides deliberately knock over that flask? That's a giant-ass Florence flask that is directly next to your workspace. I heard that Cillian smashes a Florence in this movie. I just didn't know it would be so obviously staged.
I need to go to the lecture, sir.
Why?
It's Mills Bohr.
Boring lectures. And the director said, let's show that one time Oppie poisoned a professor's apple, because with all the hero worship stuff we do later, attempted murder just isn't quite enough to ensure the audience knows he's actually an acetope. Also, the poison apple incident almost certainly didn't happen like this, or with actual cyanide, and it definitely didn't reach the point where Gilderoy Lockhart almost ate it. But sure, let's put it in the movie anyway.
A world of energy and paradox that not everyone can accept.
Kenneth Branagh can't sign the contract fast enough when he knows he gets to do an accent in a movie cliche. Luckily for the movie's bullshit poisoned apple story, Niels Bohr was uninhibited in stealing things off professors' tables.
Algebra's like sheet music. The important thing isn't can you read music, it's can you hear it. Can you hear the music, Robert?
Turning objective science into subjective art. I honestly don't know what that means, but it felt like a sin to me, so I said it. And now the ding will confirm it objectively as a sin of the movie. Drone shot, sparkles, looking up. Drone shot, sparkles, looking up. Drone shot, staring, inflamed cornea, enlightenment. We can't play it, but the fucking score in this movie is goddamn terrific. Here's a sin off for Ludwig Göransson, who's fucking killing it.
Mr. Strauss. It's pronounced Strauss.
I've gone back and listened to Oppie say Strauss 5 times now, and I swear he says Strauss. Play it again.
Mr. Strauss.
Now play RDJ.
Strauss.
Now play them back to back.
Strauss. Strauss.
They are saying the same fucking thing. I can't believe this movie got nominated for Oscars.
And this would be your office.
Even though it's a bit impractical, we've located the manual pencil sharpener directly next to the typewriter so that the audience watching will have maximum we don't use that shit anymore vibes.
I chose to sell shoes.
Louis Strauss was once a lowly shoe salesman.
No, just a shoe salesman.
Yes, Louis Strauss was a vindictive man obsessed with petty slights, which eventually led him to masterminding an extremely unfair kangaroo court hearing for Oppenheimer a few years later. But if you don't come out of this movie thinking Oppenheimer is kind of an unaware dick, then the sin is on you. I don't know where to put that sin. Let's just give it to the movie, I guess. Leaving the door standing open on what appears to be a windy, chilly day. Did the IAS not ever get to the chapter on energy loss through convection-based transference?
Albert.
So the book lover I hired tells me that American Prometheus mentioned several things that built up tension between Strauss and Oppenheimer. And the turning point was when Strauss told him he wanted to buy a house at the Institute. Oppenheimer then got the Institute to buy the house and moved someone else in so Strauss couldn't do that. But sure, I could see how you could interpret this as he thought Oppenheimer said something to cause Albert Einstein to diss him by a pond one day.
This is one of the most prestigious appointments in the country.
Yes. It was a great commute.
I can't help but be let down by this interaction between Scarecrow and Iron Man. When DC and Marvel decided to join forces after Apple bought them, I expected a lot more.
If you'll just allow me to continue with my
Mr.
statement.
Robb.
I have written it specifically to get us all the exposition we need so that even with all the different moments we're jumping around to, the audience can attempt to follow Nolan's structural hyperactivity.
After Göttingen, I moved on to Leiden in Holland, where I first met Isidore Rabi.
I actually love this movie, but the large number of names, colleges, and cities thrown into the Christopher Nolan soundtrack sound mix are extremely hard to keep up with. I mean, is this Göttingen even a real place? Is it somewhere in Gondor near the southern tip of Idaho?
If you get any skinnier, we're gonna lose you between the seat cushions.
Thin shaming.
This is German you have to seek out.
Heisenberg.
It's almost like Oppenheimer's life was like an RPG. Go to this college, learn under this dude, then meet this guy in another city. He'll tell you about some other guy you need to see. This nets you 1,367 experience points. You can now level up your intelligence. It's a fine way to build your character so you can create a weapon of mass destruction that will cause intense amounts of death, pain, and suffering. Heisenberg isn't yelling at students to say his name in this scene. Look, I'm on board for a raucous teaching montage as much as the next guy, but what kind of time is passing here? Is it a semester later? A year? 5 years? Why can't Nolan be concerned with the passage of time for once?
What happens to stars when they die?
Do stars die?
I don't know, but this seems like a good time to talk about black holes at this party in a movie that's 3 hours.
Robert here says he's not a communist.
Well, then he doesn't know enough about it.
Using the "you'd like it if you just knew more about it" defense. I'm sorry. Coffee is a bitter bean that the world has acquired a taste for, even though it inherently tastes bad. I don't care how you prepare it or what you put in it. It's still terrible, and I don't want it. So you can stop trying to convince me your hot bean water is worth imbibing.
Read this.
Because nothing turns me on more than picking a random book from a random shelf in a random language I don't understand, but just randomly ends up being the overarching theme and primary life conundrum of the person I'm f***ing.
And now I am become death. Destroyer of worlds.
Mixing sex with Sanskrit.
You're happy. I'm happy.
So then I'm happy you're happy that I'm happy.
Happy.
Tomorrow we'll climb it. What's it called?
Los Alamos.
Movie ominously hits that name so hard that I swear it wants to change its title to Los Alamos just so we can roll some credits.
Organized labor on campuses. Yes? Coming through! Coming!
Are these people chanting because someone is going to try to climb out of the Lazarus pit? What's amazing to me is that we have actual images of the San Francisco Chronicle cover from September 1st, 1939, and this movie decides to take creative license with it for some reason. Sure, it's not much creative license, but it's license nonetheless.
During the Battle of Britain, I found myself increasingly out of sympathy with the policy of neutrality that communists advocated.
But after Hitler invaded Russia and we became allies, these communist sympathies, do they return?
This movie does a decent job showing Oppenheimer fighting for human rights causes through his communist attachments, but doesn't do much to explain why they became problematic. A lot of it had to do with the Hitler-Stalin Pact of 1939, where card-carrying members of the Communist Party were forced to be neutral about the war, but this key moment is barely even mentioned. So says the guy I paid to read American Prometheus. This shot asks me to believe that every single person in this room just so happens to have their glasses exactly half full. And I don't have near enough optimism to believe that would be the case. The movie takes half an hour to realize Emily Blunt has been sitting there the entire time. At least now the movie will give her something to do, and not just treat her as an emotional transference accessory for the next 150 minutes.
Yes, you did. Because you know it won't make a bit of difference.
Why did you marry him?
Seamlessly carrying on a conversation that started halfway across the country weeks ago and not on horseback.
The FBI, why not go to the AEC direct?
Sure, I'm glad this Senate aide is here questioning an authority figure on all this info we need, as Senate aides are known to do.
But, Dr. Oppenheimer, we've already heard from Admiral Strauss that these isotopes could be useful to our enemies in the production of atomic weapons.
Congressman, you could use a shovel in making atomic weapons.
Why does the crowd laugh before Oppenheimer provides the full punchline? At the point he says shovel, they're already laughing, like they know what the Oppenheimer is about to say.
Kitty? Kitty?
That's a baby, Robert. Delivering babies to people who didn't birth them. This is a nice little scene here by the fireplace, but this moment occurred in the summer of 1941 in Pasadena. I'm wondering what kind of asshole you have to be to warm yourself by the fire during a Southern California summer.
We shouldn't be doing anything. You should. Lawrence won't get this done. Or Tolman or Robbie, you will.
A fairly decent flaw of this movie is that it doesn't really explain why Oppenheimer was the man to lead the Manhattan Project. Oh, sure, the movie shows us how quickly he understands things and how he dreams in physics, but we don't ever get a sense of why he was the person to lead this. He understood physics at a very high level, but he didn't do much in the way of original thinking. But what he could do was hear multiple perspectives and combine them in a way that made sense when others couldn't. And not one asshole in this movie makes that clear.
My favorite response. Oppenheimer couldn't run a hamburger stand.
I would award Matt Damon the Matt Damon Award for making an impact on a movie and a cameo appearance for this movie, but by the end, he'll have stiff competition from a dozen or so high-quality candidates. So here's a sin for underusing so much talent in general instead.
One point in space and time, and it comes together here. A secret laboratory. In the middle of nowhere, secure, self-sufficient. Equipment, housing, the works.
Seamlessly carrying on a conversation that started halfway across the country weeks ago and not on a train, with Valerian present. Also, there are more train conversations in this movie than in Murder on the Orient Express.
I don't wish the culmination of 3 centuries of physics to be a weapon of mass destruction.
This complicated conversation centers the movie so cleanly, and David Krumholtz is so good in this role that the movie explodes outward from this point with a chain reaction, force that's hard to deny. I could sin that it took us this long to get here, but this moment is way too good to not throw the ding reaction in reverse for a sec.
Groves is insisting we join.
Tell Groves to go shit in his hat.
Well, now that is quite the rebuttal.
Eltonton.
The chemist from Shell? The union guy?
The way this movie quick cuts to characters as they are mentioned is Nolan's implicit apology that he's given us too many names and faces to remember. And I, for one, do not forgive him.
No presidential cabinet nominee has failed to be confirmed since 1925.
Acting like this statistic means something.
I fought Oppenheimer and the U.S. won.
Failed Barbie taglines.
All it needs is a saloon.
Sounds like Kitty is making a joke about how the town looks like the Wild West, but considering the movie's focus on her drinking, I'm going to chalk this up as an actual request.
Using U-235, the bomb will need a... gadget will need...
Right, because it's a gadget, not a bomb, for reasons the movie never tells us. At least justify your reasons if you're going to wield this weapon of semantic deconstruction.
Catch me up. What do we know?
Well, for one thing, we know that the only reason someone hasn't already moved this clearly obtrusive centerpiece is because the movie wants its big chronicle reveal here in a bit.
There's no proof there was a spy at Los Alamos.
Robert.
We all love small-minded thinkers, don't we? The Soviets have a bomb, ergo there was a spy at Los Alamos. American exceptionalism says, well, the Soviets couldn't figure out an atomic bomb by themselves. Honestly, this is more of a sin about real life than the movie, but I gotta put this sin somewhere.
They put it under the football stadium?
It feels not in use anymore.
Just as well.
We're thinking about selling it to the Gotham Rogues. We can't imagine any issues down the road. This underground bunker is so much like the one in The Dark Knight that I'm expecting Bruce Wayne to show up with Alfred testing ballistics. I'd remove all the sins if that happened, even if it took me out of the movie for the rest of the runtime. Although seeing Surprise Mr. Robot make an almost cameo doesn't help much.
You know, General, not everyone has levers to pull like mine.
Bragging about how pullable your lever is.
You're neither humble nor just a soldier. You studied engineering at MIT.
Guilty as charged.
This movie has a lot of explaining to do when it comes to a time-traveling Will Hunting transported into 1943 to fight the Nazis. You hear that, movie? I got your number. How about them poisoned apples?
Under current AEC guidelines, would you clear Dr. Oppenheimer today?
While you contemplate this question, let's cut to a flashback of Oppenheimer smoking a pipe. There's no need to answer this right away. In fact, it'll be over an hour before this question gets answered.
My God, what a trick.
Thing I say every time I watch anything Star Trek somehow makes it into this movie. This is like the physics version of the scene in every Western where they walk down a brothel hallway and all sorts of debauchery is happening in every room where they look. And honestly, the physics version just isn't my preferred version.
We are at war, Doctor.
Don't be an asshole, Nichols.
Long-awaited showdown between Green Goblin and Scarecrow really fizzles before it even begins. When DC Marv Apple went under the Amazon roof, things really took a downturn.
F-A-C-T.
Find out what it means to me.
Doctor, did you think social contacts between a person engaged on secret war work and communists was dangerous?
Holy shit. The movie cut from Roger Robb asking General Groves a question to a 3-minute flashback that provides much needed context, and now cuts back to a different part of the hearing where Robb is asking Oppenheimer a question where that then goes on another flashback. Now look, I know this is a method that keeps the story moving and makes it a much better film, but can I not complain about this perceived whiplash? Can't I complain about something for once? Sitting on hotel chairs, bare-assed post-coitus.
Spent the night together, didn't you?
I get what we're going for here. Oppenheimer has to share intimate details about an affair he had directly in front of his wife. Everyone naturally allows their mind to wander during this embarrassing testimony about all the hot sex and nudity, but guess what, movie? I can now not think of anything else for the rest of this motion picture. Also, while I'm sure you'd love for me to dissect the visuals here, complete with arrows, there's clearly no penetration, which really disappointed me when I watched this in IMAX. Also, cuckwin, cowgirling, concurrent to crowded conference room, communist inquiry.
Gene, you asked me to come, and I'm glad I did.
Writing this line of dialogue while providing these visuals and expecting me not to giggle. This fumbled purse snatch exists only so we can be reminded that Kitty has an alcohol problem, since we really haven't heard from her in a while, and it's apparently her defining character trait.
I wanted to give you a heads up on a man named Eltonton.
You might want to give me another reminder of this dude, like the last time you brought him up. because my brain has been taking in so much information at this point that the viewer me is having a hard time remembering who you're talking about. Sinner me knows who we're talking about because I've now watched the movie 4 times, but Sinner me fights for the viewer me that does not know who the we're talking about. Casey Affleck now shows up for 5 minutes, and Nolan is hoarding Oscar winners in this movie like he's built an Invincible Academy Award branded Magic the Gathering deck.
I told them a cock and bull story.
Oh, so you told him the story of Tristram Shandy based on the 1759 novel written by Lawrence Stern? What did they think of Steve Coogan?
So Eltonton made his approach through a member of the faculty here at Berkeley.
I'd like to offer a reminder that this scene an hour ago is the only time we've seen this Eltonton guy in the whole movie.
Instead of us going on certain steps, which may come to your attention and be disturbing to you.
Jeez, who accidentally gave Casey Affleck the prescription for the pause in places that make you sound like a serial killer pills? Because I think he may have exceeded the recommended dosage.
What makes you think I know where he is anyway?
Oppenheimer had an affair with Ruth Tolman too, but I guess it wasn't sexy and nudity enough to nudity, sex, and nudity.
Early Christmas present for you all?
I guess everybody at the party was standing at this angle, so they couldn't see Niels Bohr until Grove stepped out of the way.
Is it big enough?
Asking this question to anyone, for any reason. Nothing in particular, just in general, is all I'm saying.
The power you're about to reveal will forever outlive the Nazis.
I'm living in 2024 and I'm beginning to doubt this statement.
They found me yesterday in the bath.
Oppenheimer plays the pronoun game 3 times in this scene so that Kitty has to ask who the hell she and her is.
You don't get to commit the sin and then have us all feel sorry for you that it had consequences.
I would like to know how Christopher Nolan got into our Sin Keeper crypt, located behind a bookshelf, to get inspiration for this quote that we have etched everywhere on the columns surrounding the pentagram and the various burial mounds. The bookshelf can only be accessed by pulling the exact books in the same order that Matthew McConaughey pushed while in the Tesseract and Interstellar. Oh, fuck. We've been hacked. This moment becoming a meme that plays off him regretting inventing the atomic bomb when really he's thinking about his responsibility for Gene's death here.
So the Super was under development on your watch at Los Alamos.
Yes.
And yet, after the war, you tried to deny it was viable.
This is a 3-hour movie, so it's understandable why we don't get full explanations for things. But we don't really get much on why the hearing is so concerned with Oppenheimer's views on the hydrogen bomb. People like Louis Strauss wanted to paint the picture that Oppenheimer, a guy with communist ties, was purposely slowing down the development of the H-bomb to help the Soviets catch up. Even when you watch this movie several times, the purpose of this line of questioning isn't super clear. They're finally taking this fucking plant off the table after several scenes of people moving it around or talking around it. The was it here for? Because if you tell me symbolism or some shit, I will fucking rage. Also, wait, was the map already under the centerpiece? Why would they put the map down and then put the centerpiece back on top of it at all? This centerpiece defies all logic and it is the worst part of the movie.
Gentlemen, let's not get sidetracked.
But it's a Nolan movie. Getting sidetracked until you are not sure which tracks are in the middle and which tracks are on the side is kind of the whole point. Confusion is art. By the way, was Jack Quaid in this movie for a second? Or did I just imagine that? I also swear I saw Rami Malek at one point.
Dr. Oppenheimer? Hi. William Boyden.
Oh, is this the guy who ends up being Christian Bale's twin brother at the end of the movie? The makeup is spectacular. I'll never forget after doing the first Dark Knight video, commenters who tried to tell us that this guy and Cillian Murphy were the same person, and there were actual likes for that comment. And now here they are in the same scene. It's so awesome when you're proved right 100% of the time, even if it's a decade later. Anyway, here's a sin for YouTube comments. Also, be sure to subscribe and leave a comment.
80 babies delivered the first year. This year we've had 10 a month.
Super pumped we got the reproductive rundown part of Los Alamos into this 3-hour movie.
What do we call the test? Bat of my heart. 3-person God. What? Trinity.
Oh.
We intend to demonstrate it in the most unambiguous terms. Twice.
Thinking you need multiple wargasms to prove your military expertise.
I've taken Kyoto off the list due to its cultural significance to the Japanese people.
Yeah, that's all you have to say. Moving on. Oh, you're not done?
Also, my wife and I honeymooned there. It's a magnificent city.
This additional reason Stimson adds to the discussion probably didn't happen, but sure, let's include it anyway.
According to my intelligence, which I cannot share with you, the Japanese people will not surrender, under any circumstances, short of a successful and total invasion of the home islands.
This is not a sin for the movie, but for real life. There were numerous ways to end the war without dropping the A-bomb on Japan. Many of them discussed in this scene. This lie ends up killing hundreds of thousands of people. Shit, there were relentless bombings before the A-bomb was dropped that devastated cities. So for ultimately entering a one-man measuring contest, I award 200,000 sins.
Can you give us a working bomb by then?
I don't know. These guys have only added like 3 pieces since we last saw them. And we've had a whole trip to Washington go down since then. What's the holdup? My family put together a 1,000-piece puzzle over Christmas, and we were drunk on eggnog and Reese's Christmas trees at the time.
Careful with the knife.
Having someone knife open your atom bomb gift wrapping, who has to be warned to be careful while using a knife around an atomic bomb. In case you forgot, this is Oppie's wife, Catherine. You can tell it's her because there's a drink in her hand. You're welcome. Get a room.
It'll break before dawn.
How could you know that?
I know this desert. Storm cools overnight. Just before dawn, storm breaks.
Oh, look, it's Chekhov's desert meteorological knowledge. Never saw that one coming. Fair play, Christopher. Fair play indeed.
In exactly 1 hour, 58 minutes, we'll know.
Nice. You could pass the time by watching 2/3 of a Nolan or half of a Scorsese.
Robert, try not to blow up the world.
The tension in this Trinity scene is just magnificent. The shots, the music, the editing. Genuinely, I have to say this scene is the bomb. I offer this sin removal as penance for what just happened here. This becomes death, destroyer of worlds for all the sometime.
Get a message to Kitty. We can't say anything. Tell her to take in the sheets.
Huh? What'd you say? Can't hear you over all these people yelling. Also, am I supposed to feel some sort of way about this line? I feel like the movie wants me to be emotionally invested in this coded exchange, but forgot that it probably should have shown me something positive about their relationship by this point if it wanted my involvement.
Robert, we've given them an ace. It's for them to play the hand.
Rounders 2, or How I Learned to Stop Playing and Deal the Hand. Also, just a single ace? It's not nothing, but certainly doesn't guarantee a good hand. I mean, you sent 2 bombs. Couldn't you at least have broadened your metaphor to include pocket aces? As Oppenheimer walks out pondering the impact of his creation and the celebration around it, I too am moved to contemplation about the way humanity doesn't think about the things it creates until the consequences are already in effect. Mostly I'm talking about whatever idiot put these spectator bleachers right under this hoop and built a fireplace under the other one. Just a complete travesty on a historical level. It makes me question whether we don't deserve exactly what we get.
I just wish we had it in time to use against the Germans.
The absolute artistry of this scene and its ability to convey the inner turmoil of Oppenheimer would have made an incredible final scene to an amazing 2-hour movie. But apparently, for the next hour, I'm supposed to now care about Robert Downey Jr. getting some sort of comeuppance because he doesn't get a job he really wanted. It's like my professor told me in college, public speaking is easy. You just have to imagine the audience nuke it. The movie suddenly turns into a 1990s music video. All this open space everywhere to vomit, and this guy chooses some poor bastard's bike to throw up on. And maybe it's his bike, but that doesn't make it any less sinful. Holy shit, how does Gary Oldman play Harry Truman and Winston Churchill in the same movie?
You think anyone in Hiroshima or Nagasaki gives a shit who built the bomb? They care who dropped it.
And what giant creatures it might attract. Don't forget that.
Lewis, we can win this thing.
Yeah, Lewis, listen to the guy here who hasn't said a single word the entire movie. I bet his opinion is very important.
But how would you know what Time magazine is going to write?
Henry Luce is a friend.
Thinking a Senate aide wouldn't have already been disillusioned by a million things worse than planting positive info in a magazine article.
Just Borden, when we all know that it's Strauss.
Remember Kitty? She's Robert's wife. You could tell it's her by the drink. You know what? You get the idea.
You let my client sit here and potentially perjure himself, and all this time, you had a recording?
We get it. It was a kangaroo on court led by a petty vendetta. We've gotten that for at least the last 20 minutes. Can we just get to the part where the guy who decided is the good guy wins?
Strauss told him that you and Ruth Tolman have been having an affair for years. He convinced Lawrence that Richard died of a broken heart.
That's absurd.
What's the heart?
A broken heart, which we never found out.
Aw, that's our Oppie. If you think the guy from 10 Things I Hate About You is going to take on the guy from H2O, 30 Days of Night, and 40 Days and 40 Nights, then you clearly don't know who has the advantage when it comes to multiples of 10.
We have an A-bomb and a whole series of it. We have a whole series of super bombs. What more do you want? Mermaids.
Mr. President, we must not allow a mermaid gap.
Is anyone ever going to tell the truth about what's happening here?
Christopher Nolan might as well have done a quick insert of himself with a blinking neon sign above him that says, "It's me, I'm the truth teller, watch me tell my truth," during this scene.
The Oppenheimer matter was initiated and carried through largely through the animus of Louis Strauss.
And you must believe me because I'm Academy Award winner Rami Malek, and these are my only words in the movie.
In a great number of cases, I have seen Dr. Oppenheimer act in a way which was to me exceedingly hard to understand.
You may have figured out that Edward Teller didn't like Oppenheimer because of his opposition to the H-bomb, which is what Teller later became famous for. But do you really understand that from this movie? We saw him try to leave Los Alamos after his colleague called him out for focusing on the H-bomb when they were working on the A-bomb. We saw him get upset at Oppenheimer when Teller brought up creating the H-bomb after the successful A-bomb drop. But we never really see the ambition that was driving him to create that bomb.
And I have believed this since I left the party 16 years ago.
But
17 years ago. My mistake.
But you said...
Sorry, 18.
Constantly interrupting someone just because you're bad at math.
Robert, you can't win this thing. It's a kangaroo court with a predetermined outcome.
He has a point.
Ah, sudden convenient late night Albert Einstein. Also, Albert Einstein did not hear that. I barely heard it myself.
By 1942, you're actively pushing the development of the hydrogen bomb, aren't you?
Movie decides in the last few minutes to get into some actual complexities about its central character's positions, but doesn't give itself enough time to thoughtfully consider the nuance it's just now bringing to the table.
He wanted the glorious, insincere guilt of the self-important to wear like a fucking crown. Say, no, we cannot go down this road, even as he knew we'd have to.
Robert Downey Jr. is incredible in this movie. Please don't ever let him put on a suit made of iron ever again.
What's his name?
Kennedy. John F. Kennedy.
I singled him out from the 3 holdouts for no specific reason whatsoever, but I'm glad you asked specifically to hear his name. Putting in a scene just so the old age makeup team can show off.
We thought we might start a chain reaction that would destroy the entire world.
I remember it well. What of it?
I believe we did.
Taking full credit for the depravity of man.
You're from New Mexico?
No, New York, but my brother and I have a ranch outside Santa Fe.
You know, you should see Santa Fe. Everything's different there.
Then it's best you get home, cowboys.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Can you explain quantum mechanics to me? It seems baffling.
Now, let's say a drop water falls in your hand. Which way is the drop going to roll off?
I'm your nuclear deterrent. It's working. We're safe. America is secure. You want my property? You can't have it.
Or should we pivot
To what?
and embrace it?
Would that it were so simple.
We imagine a future, and our imaginings horrify us. Just because we're building it doesn't mean we get to decide how it's used.
If you build it, you will come.
Except it's the most remote possibility. How remote? Chances are near zero.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
San Diego High School football room!
Let's see, we're sitting down here ready to negotiate. I'm still a mystery to you.
All along with McCarthy on the rise, he knew he was vulnerable. His brother was blacklisted by every university in the country.
You supported the dropping of the atom bomb on Japan.
What do you mean
didn't
support?
you?
You look about another target, a military target, then name the system.
What's his name?
Kennedy. John F. Kennedy.
Who the hell is John F. Kennedy?
Well,